Hello everyone and welcome to another Backbase webinar. My name is Jelmer de Jong and I'm here together with Jouk Pleiter.
Good morning, good evening. Welcome everybody.
Today we're going to talk about the omni-channel banking and the digital transformation roadmap. It's based on a report we recently published. Hopefully you already have read it, or I will make sure you get that report as well so you can read it later on. And then the key points in that report were all about building the 10 times better bank, making sure that we have the right tools, the right ingredients to make sure that we can improve how banking is currently done and how we can improve the digital transformation journey most banks are going through. Before we start discussing this topic, a few things that are important. Of course, as you're familiar with Backbase, the slides and the recording of this webinar will be available within 24 hours after the webinar. I'll make sure that everybody that is registered will receive these slides and recordings. And of course, you're completely free to share those slides and the recording as well with your colleagues. So the slides and recordings will be available. At the end of this webinar, we also have a Q&A, so you can ask your questions and we'll try to answer them. For that, you can use the GoToWebinar panel on your right-hand side to type in that question. Use the chat box for that. Or you can participate on Twitter. Just use the hashtag Backbase and we'll make sure to monitor that as well, so we can answer everything that's needed for this time. So, Jouk, if you're ready, we're going to start. Let's discuss how we're going to build a 10 times better bank.
Yeah, let's go.
I think the reason we're doing this is because we see a lot of change in the market.
Yeah, I guess everybody is fully aware that the dynamics in the market are changing. If we look here at the next slide, both customer demand and well as the competition is quite, there's quite a lot of change. So on the customer side, I think we're all aware that we see disruptors. Not only in banking, but also initially mostly outside of banking. So what you see here in the screen, companies like Amazon with their overnight or one-click buy or overnight delivery are disrupting retail. A pure digital player completely changing the way retail is done and really impacting the brick and mortar industry. Players like Uber, a completely digital connectivity platform, is changing the way we do transportation. Netflix is challenging broadcasting. So in the last 5 to 10 years, we really see a number of gigantic digital plays in different industries that are completely changing the landscape. And I think the prediction is that it's also going to happen, as we all I think know, in banking.
Yeah, and I think the reason these companies we mentioned here, Amazon, Uber, Netflix, the reason that they're winning, because they're 10 times better than the status quo. They're 10 times better in doing digital, in delivering that great personalized user experience across all devices than the traditional players in one sense.
Yeah, people say actually they have a few benefits. It's 10 times better because they take they pick one thing and they do it very well. But they also, of course, they have the benefit of not having any legacy. But on the other hand, they're making massive investments to get the digital play to get it right. If you look at Amazon's investments, it is massive. Also, if you look in the investments for Uber, we all know what kind of investments they are making. It's also very significant.
I think none of the three are making profit, right?
Well, Amazon is. Amazon
Okay.
is
Started this
at
year?
large. Absolutely, they are big time. Yeah. So the first observation is that the market is changing, customer demand is changing, and these companies are basically raising the bar from a customer experience point of view, and now also challenging the banks to get their act together.
Yeah, because the things they do well, being instant, being great in UX, being on mobile, that's all the trends we also see in the financial services space.
Yeah, of course, that's going to happen. All right, so on the next slide, as we already discussed, we see kind of now a lot of different monoliners. So what you see here on the screen is a classic homepage of a random bank. And you see for all the different products provided by this bank, we now see monoliners, fintech startups, really kind of challenging the bank on each and individual category.
Yeah, I think most of the webinar attendees are familiar with this picture. We used it before and it's floating around on Twitter. If you follow the fintech influencers, you've seen this picture. And it's also around the trend of the decoupling of banking or the unbundling of banking service a bit, right?
Yeah, I think with decoupling of banking, we now see monoliners or digital initiatives that just take one item and they really try and use digital technology to do it well.
Yeah, because in the past, as a person, you just went to one bank for all the products you needed, and now I use Wealthfront for my portfolio management. I use maybe something like Lending Club to get a mortgage or a loan together. So I have different players in the market that I'm using instead of one solution.
There's at least more choice, and what you see with these digital players, they try to make the processes as easy and intuitive as possible. So I don't say that the monoliners have an advantage or they're going to conquer it. I think the jury is out there. I think also the banks can really fight back and disrupt the market themselves. But clearly, these single play companies, they use digital technology, they make things significantly easier and significantly more efficient. They don't have any legacy, so they can go fast. So for sure, they are challenging the established players.
As Amazon is challenging the retailer, Uber challenging the taxi industry, Netflix challenging, let's say, the television and movie industry. These are the challengers in the fintech space.
Amongst others, absolutely. So what we did within our recent survey, we did a survey with around 100 C-level executives within the banking industry, and we asked them what they see as their biggest threat. And clearly, here you see a nice kind of summary with percentages of how where they see the potential threat coming from. So clearly, the technology companies, potentially Google, Apple, but also the startups and the neobanks are clearly listed as the major or the biggest threat for the traditional banking landscape.
And neobanks, that's really how we define it, I believe, in the questionnaire was new digital initiatives by existing banks.
Possible. I don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, I believe the startups were more or less the startup bank, like a simple,
Yeah.
and but also the wealth fronts and betterments of this world.
Yeah.
And neobanks were really, they're also a bit, the people are afraid of traditional banks opening up the digital only branch that has the ability to have no legacy, as you said.
Yeah.
And move quickly.
Now, clearly, with Backbase, we see that happening at a very large scale. We see a lot of traditional banks. On one end, they try to renovate and improve their existing IT landscape and their mainstream banking operations. But we also, next to that, to your point, we see them actually starting complete from the ground up new digital banks. No legacy, state-of-the-art new brand new technology to go way faster. Yeah. And basically, their goal is actually, they say, if someone is going to cannibalize us, let's cannibalize ourselves with our new digital initiative.
Yeah, and we see that as well, because of course, if you see this as the big threats, you also need to fight those threats. So we asked the people that we did in the survey with, where are you investing in?
Yeah, so I think it's not a surprise for most of the audience, so we can quickly move on here. But kind of if you look at where the magnitude of increase is, that is of course in digital channels and in customer services and in experience. And it's great to see this because if you compare these numbers with 5 years ago, there was a lot about compliance here. Customer experience was important, but not that important. Digital channels were, kind of nice, yet another thing, but not that strategic. And right now you can see clearly today, this year, 2015 and onwards, customer experience and digital channels are critical for banks actually to stay relevant and to go ahead.
Great. So I think in this webinar we'll focus on 5 main points to help you to find those competitors and also kind of the points we see are essential for 2016.
Yep, absolutely. So the key topics are how can we actually start with the customer experience? So let's forget about the backend, let's forget about all these different banking products, but let's really start with the customer. How can we pursue a true omni-channel delivery model? What is omni-channel? How can you do this? How can you do this in one go, or can you do it in a staged approach? How can we take benefit of the growth of mobile? There's a tremendous uptake, of course, in mobile devices around the world and also within mobile banking. So how can we utilize and capitalize on the traffic we have within the mobile channel? How can we regain control over the digital strategy? A lot of digital, of course, has to be executed by IT professionals. So there needs to be a very close collaboration between IT and business. What are those collaboration models and how can the business folks really participate in the digital strategy and really optimize the customer experience and optimize their digital sales results? And then finally, how are the economics of digital transformation? What does it do for the bottom line? So let's go.
Great. Let's start with the with customer experience.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a little bit an open door, right? Because customer experience should be on the front of every bank. But then we keep talking about it quite a lot because apparently doing customer experience well is difficult.
Yeah, I think probably if you look at the statistics here, and we don't have to read them, I think there are just 2 things we would like to highlight today. two things that are really, are standing out in roadblocks. So one is we have too many silos, people silos, product silos, IT silos, but banks are full of silos. So it's extremely hard to collaborate and to get the right content combined for the end customer. So the silos are blocking an optimal customer experience. And the second thing, projects take too much time. Things are way too slow. So let's explore those two things a little bit more in detail.
Yes, let's start with how can we fix the silo problem?
Yeah, I guess even in the digital channel, we see a lot of silos. So even in technology that's less than 10 years old, even in technologies that we're investing in today, we see the tendency to create silos. So we see multiple secure portals, different ways to do online banking. For retail banking, for wealth management, separate login for a credit card environment. So even in the digital channel, we see a lot of different websites with separate logins. Additionally, we see a lot of new mobile application development, but all these different mobile apps are one-offs. They have a different look and feel. They have different code bases for Apple and for Android. So also over there, with the latest technology in mobile, even there, banks are starting to create more and more silos. The problem is it's an inconsistent customer experience, and even more so, you duplicate code base and you duplicate business logic, which making it very expensive to maintain and to optimize. This is all customer facing. Then on top of that, we also see yet another set of generation of technologies to empower the frontline employees, like people in the call center, people in the branch, the teller systems. So in general, way too many silos. And the vision moving forward is to kind of look forward to kind of invest in what people now refer, of course, a customer experience platform. One presentation layer, one orchestration layer, actually to unify content, data, and functionality from whatever silo we have in the bank into a seamless customer experience. And within this presentation layer, the vision is actually we can now distribute the functionality to any device, so any screen size, from the big screen to the small screen, but also to different personas, to different customer types, different customer segments, but also to employees.
And so the big banks that are doing well, they're all moving to this unified CX layer, or that's on their roadmap for the coming years.
If you're talking about omni-channel, people start to realize that the battle for the customer is A, it's digital, and B, it is in the customer interaction layer. That is the part that the customer can see. That's where you need to unify the right information to kind of create that seamless customer journey.
But to do that successfully, I think normally you see that kind of paradigm shift is needed. We talk about it as the outside-in approach.
Yeah, I think people that are more often in the Backbase webinars know this, and I think we can be brief about this. But for people that are new here tonight or today, is what we basically see is that a lot of the traditional siloed approach is the result from an inside-out thinking. There's a payment system, there's a core banking system, and people are just adding new channels on top of it. 30 years ago, there was the call center. 20 years ago, there was the ATM. 10 years ago, there was the web, and today there's mobile. And we basically see that people are just kind of adding more channels, but the whole movement is just to push stuff from the inside to the outside. So it's product centric, it's bank centric, has nothing to do with the customer. The channel is just literally a channel to push products or data to the end customer. The paradigm shift in the digital world is completely the other way around. It is really, let's forget about all these banking products, let's forget about all these different technologies. Let's just simply go back to the end customer. If you look at Uber, if you look at Netflix, or if you look at Google, they don't think in channels. They just think in customers. And these customers can execute certain customer journeys, and they can do it on multiple devices. And they can even jump from one device to another device, and the journey is seamless. So that's what we mean with outside in. It means start with the customer can do a seamless customer journey in any device, in any channel. And in order to do so, you basically need to decouple the customer experience layer from the underlying core systems. So you basically see two layers. You see the traditional layer with the legacy systems, which is the bottom triangle, and you see the upper layer, which is the customer experience layer, in which you can innovate faster.
And once you have enabled that, we are able to provide a seamless customer journey across those different devices and touch points.
Yeah, the picture you see here on the screen is of course super difficult.
This is the end state.
This is the end state. So let's be real. We're not going to accomplish this within 6 months. But in general, if you start to think about having a flexible customer experience layer, which really understands the customer, which understands their permissions, so role-based access control, which understands their preferences, which understands their previous behavior, and also kind of understands their context and their state, you can really start to kind of glue these things together, and you can serve the right content to the right user within the right context. And if that customer for some reason would like to kind of switch to a different device, or would like to switch to a human assisted process, that is possible because you have the data, you have the context, you have the user permissions, and you can play with those ingredients. And the only thing why you can do this because you're not operating anymore in silos, but above these silos, you are operating in a customer orchestration layer that enables you to do so.
So in this case, we're looking at John Smith. He's on a mission. He wants to open a new current account, and he uses the web to do search, to do comparison, make an appointment, interact with maybe a mobile app to get a push notification, to go to a branch. And he doesn't have to update all the people all the time about the status. Just in that CX layer, in that customer experience layer, we have one session that enables.
Yeah, it's basically a track and trace, right? It's like UPS. We can track and trace our postal packages. We can now do that with the customer as well. Well, later on in the research, later on today, we also will present some other data points about what channels are most popular and what channels are really driving sales. But in general, we can say that it has to be seamless across multiple devices, and the digital devices will do the majority of this traffic, but still there needs to be a nice interoperation between the brick and mortar world with the branch as well as the digital world. And how do we make sure that we can actually have a seamless collaboration there, A, between digital devices, and B, between the digital device and a human person that provides assistance, either remote with co-browse or chat, or in person in the branch.
Great. Let's move to the next challenge.
Yeah. All right.
So it takes too much time.
Yeah.
Jouk.
Way too much time. We hear this often, and a lot of people are frustrated by projects from the past, poor IT track records. So let's look at this picture here. The root cause of why things are typically a little bit slow has to do with the fact that we have to think about a new model where we accept that there are two types, two-speed architecture. Let's call it like the two-speed architecture type of model. So what does that mean? If we look at the change capability of our classic IT systems, basically the siloed backend systems, it is extremely hard to change these systems or even to expose them to the web world. So the innovation speed here, the capability to change or to change quickly is relatively slow. So if we would visualize this as a heartbeat, it's a relatively flat heartbeat. Where with a decoupled customer experience layer, especially because of the fact it is decoupled, we can now introduce a faster innovation speed in the digital world. It still means, and we're going to address it later today, that we need to kind of expose here in the diamond via open contracts, people call it APIs, application programming interface, basically between handshakes between the legacy systems and this new digital world, so that in this digital world we can innovate fast, we can create a superior experience on any device, we can have the flexibility to mix and match any capability, any data, any content, any functionality into a seamless customer journey by leveraging the different silos that exist inside the bank. So that's kind of the idea. So one of the key reasons why projects are slow, they typically are based because of the fact that these underlying systems are hard to change. And by introducing a new presentation layer, these things can go way faster.
Yeah, and I think in the modern age, it's also way easier to start leveraging best of breed blueprints to accelerate what you do in the digital channel, right?
Yeah, you see more and more players in the market, banking players, neobank players, software vendors like Backbase. They introduce industrialized customer experience components, either on the web or mobile, often a combination, that are really optimized and really outside in within their design. They are really customer centric, and you can use them as your new omni-channel presentation layer, and you can wire them to whatever backend infrastructure you have. So one way to make projects a little bit faster is not to try to reinvent the wheel, but actually source the market for these pre-built components just to go a little bit faster and take industrialized user experience design, state-of-the-art digital innovation just to jumpstart your digital transformation initiative.
Yeah, I heard people refer to this as Lego. Small building blocks so you can mix of match best of breed functionality into the new bank you want to build. So you don't have to focus on the basics on the plumbing, but can focus on making the difference. Focus on creating that unique layer that makes you unique and authentic compared to your competitors on top of the Lego you provide out of the box.
I think the Lego metaphor is a very nice metaphor, and you have Lego elements at multiple levels. You have user interface, so UX Lego blocks, but you also behind the UX, you have integration, so the wiring Lego blocks, and you have some small business components, business logic components, or data components that make it all possible. So it's not just on the surface, it's not just on the glass, it's not just the UI, but it's also actually how do you integrate that UI in an intelligent, smart way in whatever backend system is available.
So if we talk about projects taking much time, we can fix that with the paradigm shift, the two-speed architecture.
Absolutely.
We can fix that with the Lego, with the building blocks.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit about culture and process.
Absolutely. The even with a decoupled presentation layer, so even with a faster digital innovation layer and with lots of pre-built Lego blocks, still, if your culture or if you are still in the classic or say older or more traditional IT power values, which is more centralized, which is more controlled, which is more waterfall, it still will be very difficult to compete. So we talk a lot with banks that realize that for digital transformation, they have to look at Silicon Valley or they have to look at high-tech startups, fintech companies, but in general, just high-tech startup companies that have agile development processes that are in more of a quick do something, measure, learn, fail quickly, innovate, measure, and then see what is working and then improve on that. So it's really kind of that new agile, but also lean startup style of working. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the lean startup philosophy, Jelmer.
Yeah, I think the whole trend we're seeing that, of course, the workplace is becoming differently. You also see that here, if you compare old to new, it's more from moving from centralized control to decentralized, kind of loss of control, more autonomy. So smaller units, smaller organizations that can work independent.
Yeah.
And technology, as you touched upon, the APIs make that possible. So you can just focus on building small blocks that have small ways to talk to each other. So very small teams can build small new features pretty quickly, release them to the market, start testing them, get customer feedback, either kill the project if it's not working or start improving based on the feedback you're getting. And then moving to a faster release cycle, change cycle, where you can really start focusing on the customer journey, incorporating customer feedback, and move in weeks instead of years in small sprints versus one very long marathon that is very familiar with most big IT cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one final thing on this topic, and that's really the collaboration between business and IT. And unfortunately, we see still a lot of models where the IT guys are in one building in a different town, and then the business guys are in another building in another town. And communication is via email or formal steer groups, but there's not a real true collaboration model. So we in our previous webinars, once we discussed kind of the mBank example from Poland or the ING model, you see more and more the essence where banks now really start to realize that the distinction between the business or the chief operating office organization or the change organization or the IT organizations and all these different silos, if these silos and these different departments continue to operate as siloed departments and they're not truly collaborating in an agile team fashion, it's still very classic. So what it really means is that we now see banks finally also, and luckily I would say, moving to models where business, IT, project, compliance are all in the same building and really operate as a new digital startup. Of course, you see that happening with the new neobanks established by the banks, the traditional banks, but you also see it with the larger banks that they finally start to move into that kind of more, I would say, Silicon Valley software development, software design type of culture and process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's move to the next topic.
Absolutely.
Omni-channel and the changing channel mix. I think this is omni-channel is the buzzword of the day. And also, according to our survey, actually we had the option that you could select omni-channel is not important or not important at all. Nobody answered that. Everybody thinks that omni-channel experiences or creating a seamless omni-channel experience is from extremely important to somewhat important, but of course, majority extremely important. So, this is nothing new.
All right. So what does it mean?
That's the difference, of course. So everybody says it's important, omni-channel, But if we then check who is doing omnichannel, who is truly creating that seamless omnichannel customer experience, only 90% currently has that active in the organization and is expanding it. A bigger part, 30%, is deploying it, but more than half is still experimenting, exploring, or not even doing it at the moment. So
Yeah.
everybody realizes it's extremely important, but we all see it's difficult apparently to move there because really expanding on the strategy is not yet something that people are working on.
I think it would be a little bit too far for today to really go into a definition of what is omnichannel. But even omnichannel means a lot of different things for people. For some people, omnichannel means just brand consistency. But let's go to the next slide. This is a recent research from Forrester, and they really describe it very nicely. They say, how can we move from channel islands into an omnichannel future? And they basically say, every decade we had a different type of technology: ATM and the teller applications in the branch, then the call center technology, then internet technology, and now today mobile technology. But with all these technology waves, the banks took the opportunity to utilize the technology just to create another channel to integrate and communicate with the end customer. But all these technologies and all these channels are completely siloed, as you can see here in a classic model. So the vision described here in this Forrester research is that how can banks move from channel islands to an omni-channel future? Again, here you see that kind of omni-channel banking layer, which is very similar to that decoupled customer experience orchestration layer, in which you really have the customer as the central focal point, and you really start to orchestrate customer interactions across multiple devices.
Yeah.
What is very clear here is that you don't have to do this in a big bang approach. You can actually just take an omni-channel architecture and just start small. So for instance, you can start with 1 or 2 mobile apps, but you know that these mobile apps and the components you are creating there, the Lego blocks, are reusable in other device contexts as well. And you can not only use them for your end customer, but you can also use them to empower your employees. So I think omni-channel is a big vision. And it's also something you don't accomplish probably in 12 months. But if you have the right architectural footprint and you have the right culture and the outside-in approach, you can start small and you can grow bigger. And you start to cover more personas, more user segments, and more devices.
Yeah, so let's look at how some of the newer players are doing that. I think what you see here on this picture is you see on the left-hand side, you see a traditional player, and they're very much, let's say, vertical focused. They have one big app that's responsible for UX marketing, for the APIs, for the infrastructure, and they run that one big app, that one monolithic application on top of the rails, the Swift ACH direct payment network.
Yeah.
What we now see on the other side is that the newer players are moving way more horizontal.
Yeah.
The new players like Simple, Moven, they're purely focused on doing this very well. They're purely focused on that user experience layer, on that customer experience layer that we talked about in the past. They then have a very strong orchestration layer with strong APIs where they can use best of breed banking infrastructure providers, best of breed, let's say, fintech providers that are out there that we see also challenging the banks directly, and use this ecosystem to do what they need to do well, service the customer, provide a good customer journey.
Yeah. So yeah, basically what you see here is that how do you move from a vertical monolithics into more of a flexible horizontal type of architecture. And these underlying systems can be fintech players, but they can also be your traditional legacy applications.
Your core banking app.
Your core banking app, your core CRM system, your business process management capabilities, your enterprise service bus. So the nice thing here is that you can leverage in this horizontal architecture, you can leverage both your internal systems as well as new fintech players. And via APIs, again, these application programming interfaces, they are basically digital handshakes between the core systems and this new digital user experience layer. You can make a composition and you can orchestrate the customer experience.
So to start doing that, we talked about Lego, we can talk about widgets.
Yeah, widgets are basically little mini applications. A widget can run within a browser, it can run on a desktop, it can run in a smartphone, but basically it's a mini application. And if you think about an omni-channel customer experience layer, it's not about monolithic applications. It's not about channels. We don't care. It's all about a customer or a user, an employee on a specific device. And with this omni-channel architecture, you can have little UI building blocks that can contain anything: payments, communication, core banking capabilities, personal finance management, content, origination, basically anything. So widgets are the building blocks in which you can actually assemble and compose different data and different capabilities from whatever backend system inside the bank, outside the bank, and you have the flexibility now to mix and match these capabilities within any device.
And to do that, of course, you need a strong orchestration layer to hook up to those APIs.
Yeah, just if widgets would just be user experience design, it would actually just be cosmetics.
Yeah.
Right? It would just be
They would just
cosmetics.
live there.
It would just actually be a prototype. It wouldn't be real. To make it real, you need to have an orchestration layer. You need to have a security model, who can access what. You need to orchestrate stuff. You need to integrate stuff. You need to apply security and permissions and compliancy to really make sure that this UX world, this decoupled presentation layer, is properly integrated into the underlying core systems.
So what we see here on this picture, you have your core systems, but I believe next to core systems, you can also put the fintech players.
Yep.
The fintech players here on the bottom.
Absolutely.
And through this orchestration layer, where you hook that up in your services layer, so you have the strong APIs that you can easily talk to the widgets that are empowered. They can contain the functionality.
Yeah, this picture basically, I think, is the universal model. Maybe it's a little bit too technical, but if you compare this horizontal architecture, this picture is a little bit more detailed to show you the different type of layers of technology that are required to truly move into digital transformation.
Yeah. Because when we're talking a bit about digital transformation, this is a very nice picture by Alessandro. He published this a few months back on Bank Next, where he discussed the 4 scenarios of the future bank.
Yeah.
And here you see, maybe there are 4 or 5, but he focused on four different upgrade scenarios for existing banking players. And you see the bottom one, the most exciting one, that definitely needs that strong API layer.
Well, in general, you need to, because if you look at the better bank, you see a lot of, let's say, incumbents, a lot of larger, medium to larger, whatever, banks that have already core systems, and they are investing in this new digital experience layer. So you need to have APIs here to connect to whatever legacy system you have. And there's quite a few, right? So APIs are fundamental in any scenario. So but scenario 1 is just how do we actually move the big bank, and how do we kind of actually empower that bank with a super flexible, decoupled digital experience layer. That's one model. The second model is basically the neobank, right?
Started from scratch.
New core, new CRM. You basically select the whole stack from scratch and you build it, no legacy. Typically, you see startup teams with 50 to 300 people building a complete new banking infrastructure. Sometimes banks make this investment on purpose to actually migrate in the future their customers from the legacy banks into the neobank. And then the neobank is just more modern and more flexible.
Yeah.
Scenario 3.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, interesting.
They call this the distributed bank. So here we don't see the legacy banking platform, or not a banking platform at all, but what they call a banking service aggregator at the front end that serves the customer, that's just consuming the different services from those fintech providers.
Yeah, super.
So if you go back to the picture we saw at the beginning with all the different challengers,
yeah.
Let's say I take Wealthfront, I take Lending Club, and I put an aggregator on top of that, I have a mini bank by myself.
Absolutely. So that's the cool thing about all these new capabilities. Both traditional banks as well, these new fintech players, they start to expose their capabilities not only via user interface, but they also start to expose it via APIs. And if you can actually consume the data and the functionality via these APIs, you can make your new user interface on top of it, and you're basically creating a new value proposition, which is this third scenario.
Yeah, and that brings us to the fourth, where you see a very nice blend between your existing banking platform, where you have your existing services, your existing products, complemented with services from those fintech providers, and putting that together in one full omni-channel banking interface that is the bank of the future, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. I love scenario 4 because it's the perfect fusion of the power the banks have within their traditional systems, which contain a huge amount of customer data, and they can be relevant for the next 20, 30 years. We can reuse that, but now we can kind of blend that and intelligently combine that with new fintech technology to make it really exciting.
So we focus on scenario 4, that's the future.
All scenarios are fine, depending on your strategy. Even if you would start with scenario 1 or scenario 2, I think scenario 3 and 4 are just always a possibility. You can always add capabilities. So maybe it's also a maturity model in a certain way. I think scenario 1 and 2 are more the baseline. You have to do it either way. And then scenario 3 and 4 are, at least from a traditional banking perspective, are kind of the phase 2, phase 3 scenarios, or maybe even phase 1.
Yeah. But for all, you need APIs.
Yeah, because I really like this sentence. Startups, these challengers, they win by doing one thing well. So they are the monoliners. They are kind of the breakup of the digital banking capability. But on the other hand, the banks have a huge opportunity to actually win by integrating the user experience by utilizing all these APIs. They're from their traditional systems as well as their future systems.
Yeah, let's talk briefly about that API thing. Maybe you can explain a bit what these APIs here are and how they work.
Yeah, this is maybe a little bit too technical, so we'll keep it very brief. But basically, an API gateway is new technology that's now available in the market, and all the major players are offering it, Oracle, IBM, etc. Open source technologies, doesn't matter. But what it does, it basically enables you to kind of enable and expose your legacy systems with their own APIs, and you can register all the functionality you have within your traditional core banking systems and expose them via the API gateway. You can also do this with third-party providers, fintech providers, any third-party providers, Salesforce.com for CRM, doesn't matter. LiveLink from Microsoft, Skype, doesn't matter. You can integrate whatever existing capabilities from your own IT systems as well as third-party systems in this API gateway. And from there, you can start to innovate. You can enable your partners to innovate on top of your capabilities. You can do it with your own bank. And of course, it will accelerate the development of your digital channels. So APIs, but also API gateways, basically the management of APIs, the governance of APIs is a prerequisite for faster digital innovation. So that's also what you see here. In the end of the day, an API gateway will enable you to leverage whatever assets you have in and outside the bank. It will enable you to accelerate your web applications, your mobile applications, and it will enable your partners or even your developer ecosystem to innovate on top of your platform and create added value. This is a very common model with technology companies. Look at Salesforce, look at Facebook. They have massive developer ecosystems that create value on top of their APIs. So in Silicon Valley, this model is already out there for the last 10 years. It's a decade old. But we're now seeing the same type of patterns, the same type of models that made Facebook great, that made Google great, that made Salesforce great, are moving now into banking. And actually by banking, opening up their APIs, at least for their internal developers, they can innovate faster. And then it's a business decision to decide, are you going to share your data with third parties? And are you going to charge for that data? So in the end of the day, the API gateway will accelerate the digital transformation, but it will also enable you to find new ways to monetize the assets you already have.
Yeah. Third topic, how can we regain control in the era of digitization? What we see currently is we ask the people what channel drives the most revenue here in 2015, and we see a nice mix between physical, online, and mobile. And then we ask, what are your expectations for 2020? And you see it's only physical channels and mobile, or at least a digital variant. And I was very much surprised by this because you see the huge boom from online, increasing mobile, and maybe a little bit other, because maybe smartwatches, who knows, comes there. But the expectation for 2020.
Jelmer, this is unbelievable.
It's
this
all
means,
about mobile.
if you are head of contact center, this picture doesn't look good, right?
No, I think you have a very good supporting role, but this is all about revenue, right? And they expect way more people to then maybe start the journey on a mobile device and then use the contact center to get support. Maybe sign it still in the branch, because that's a lot of countries still necessary for compliance. You have to do that physical signature, but maybe mobile is the revenue driving starting point.
Okay, great. So, but then the next question is that, who's responsible for revenue? Typically that's marketing and that's business, right?
Yeah.
They need to drive this. So if you would ask these people, what channels can business people manage? What's the outcome?
They can only actually manage the public marketing website, maybe some campaign pages. Of course, they can do social media. That's all very nice. But where the traffic is, in mobile and in a closed internet banking environment, almost nobody can manage that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we have web content management systems. People can create text and pictures, but where the real traffic is, business is locked out.
They're not in control.
And why is that? Because I guess with closed internet banking and with mobile banking apps, it's IT intense. So these IT people don't, because it has to be secure, I guess, because it's IT heavy, the marketing and the business people are not allowed to play.
I think maybe currently it's being not allowed, but also thinking about just selecting the right technology. I think it's also a big transition. People were investing quite a lot in the public marketing website. So of course, marketing was running that. Web content management was there. Marketing was in control.
Yeah.
Now we see all that traffic, but also the way you acquire customers, way more changing from direct to way more cross and upsell to an existing customer base, way more focused on increasing share of wallet. You see that here is a picture of most banks. I think you're familiar with it. you have your public marketing website and your closed environment. Actually, you see the most popular feature on your public marketing website is the login button. People go to the public marketing website, hit the login button, go to the closed environment, and it's an either regular web or directly to the secure mobile app. And that's where the customer is, that's where the eyeball is. And this is currently where marketing is not in control. And we feel very strongly it's essential that marketing starts to work on a collaboration model with IT, that they can have the option to run marketing campaigns, to run their campaigns directly in the closed environment, directly in the mobile environment, especially.
Right.
If all the traffic is moving away to mobile, why can't you run a marketing campaign directly in the mobile channel? That's the future of banking, and that's what you should work on.
Yeah.
Because it's all about this picture. It's all about the omni-channel journey where mobile devices are essential. It's from the regular phone where you do something quick, from the more focused apps on your computer, of course, to casual browsing on your iPad, and of course you still have to sign something or drink coffee with your banker in a physical channel. But you want to control the complete journey from a customer experience point of view, from a marketing point of view, and control is essential in that area.
Yeah, so also time-wise, to kind of wrap this up. So what we see here with this point, a few key messages. One, there's a tremendous opportunity after the login, and it is important that we are going to enable business stakeholders to directly capitalize on the traffic after the login. And that's on online banking and that's on mobile banking traffic. So typically the key trends here to enable that are new technologies which enable business teams to collaborate together with IT, where the business people in a safe editing environment can use a visual editor to kind of optimize the online banking and the mobile experience. So think of this as almost like a web content management system or a blogging tool, the same type of simplicity, but now after the login, in online banking, in mobile banking, enabling the business people to change content, to make nice campaigns, and to
run
cross and
A/B
upsell.
testing, run cross and upsell campaigns, and then on the channels that matter most. And that's not social, that's not your public marketing website, that's internet banking, and that's mobile nowadays.
Makes sense. So key, to kind of summarize this here, is that the key thing here is that capitalize on the traffic, but also how can we enable business and IT folks to collaborate? So in this picture, we try to summarize this, and this could be your online banking lifecycle, application lifecycle, or it could be your smartphone or mobile banking application lifecycle. But basically, you would like to have the developers to do short sprints to update and introduce new functionality and to go live with that functionality in an agile fashion, ideally maybe every month, especially if you have a loosely coupled digital presentation layer. The frequency of new releases, they are not like these huge monolithic applications. They're just little widgets. So how can we release new building blocks, new Lego blocks, new widgets, and introduce them quickly to the market? But you need developers for that. So how can we empower the developer? And in parallel, how can we enable business people to make content updates and to do cross and upsell campaigns without the need to program, and in parallel to the developer teams? These business updates, by the way, can happen at any moment. Ideally, you can do them within an hour. There's workflow approval, but after things are approved, after things are really correctly presented to the end user, you can pull the switch and go live.
This is also again the heartbeat story, right? We still have the pretty steady functional heartbeat, where of course the KPIs are all performance security, so this should be steady. It should not be like on an hourly basis. It's very steady heartbeat.
Yep.
And here where business is in control, we have the fast-moving consumer heartbeat. I'm able to launch new campaigns in a matter of minutes because that's how fast the world is moving. Of course, still securely in the sandboxed environment, but now with full speed without a direct dependency on my IT counterparts.
Absolutely.
Great. Let's move to the final topic, because of course it's all nice that we see some trends, but it's also about the money.
Yeah, so we can keep this short. We've got a few nice data points here from Transform. So what you see here is a quick summary of the average cost for a customer contact. So cost per contact. An average cost per visit in the branch, around $4. And if you look at digital, $5. So that's a huge difference. If you kind of do the math here, is what you see here, and the cosmetics of these slides are not very attractive, but the hard numbers are extremely attractive. Here you see a bit of an example, like the transaction cost per interaction for digital, ATM, call center, and branch. You see that these numbers are very similar to the numbers over here. They're from a different source, so on average, I think we're pretty accurate there. You see the transaction allocation, and you see in the traditional model that the total cost in this example is around 3.3 million. If you then compare this with digital, where we see a shift from 0% in digital to 50% in digital and a reduction of the branch traffic by half, you see that suddenly the overall channel costs are only 50%. So we can have all sorts of conversations, but in general, if we are enable our customers to interact successfully via the digital channels, we can dramatically lower our cost per contact.
So does this mean that the branch is dead?
Of course not. No. If we look at the next one, I think the key thing here is that we have the people like Brad King and the Bank 2.0 book and the branch is dead. We see way more and more evidence that the branch is not dead, but basically there are two forces working in parallel. So we see factors that are driving the digital bank. And to Brad's credit, I think Brad really made the point about how important digital is. And he started with that like 5 years ago, and today you can really see it in full swing. It is extremely important, and I think nobody would disagree. But in parallel, there are also factors that will sustain branch banking, and that has to do with trust, customer preferences, and the human aspect in the sales process. So I think the key thing here is we talk about omni-channel, is that how do we combine digital devices and physical channels to really collaborate as one.
Clear. And I think this is also in relation with our research. We saw the big jump in mobile with physical stay there because they complement each other.
Absolutely. So yeah, so even if you look here at, no, let's go there, it's fine. You're right. Okay, final summary here, also time-wise. This is a picture we got from McKinsey. What is really nice here is that they did a whole lot of research, and you can actually Google for this if you would like to see the details. It's public information, it's on the web. But what you see here is that banks that are IT efficient, that really know how to do the digital play, they have a higher correlation on profit margin. And I guess if you look at the previous numbers, that makes sense. So,
great. And I think the main conclusion here is after we discuss these topics, it's not something we have to wait for. It's really key that banks need to start their journey towards digital transformation right now.
I think most banks already started. People are starting, people are preparing, people are figuring out how to do it. Some of them are a little bit faster, some of them are preparing, but it's happening right now. So a little bit about Backbase, quick summary. Backbase is a software company. We help banks or financials to create, manage, and optimize secure omni-channel customer interactions. So basically everything that is digital, this new digital transformation layer and orchestration layer is something that is close to our heart, and we really are passionate to enable banks to help and to move with that digital transformation. We got some nice market recognition. Globally, Forrester Research analyzed around 30 software vendors in the market that potentially can help with digital transformation. Only 8 or 7 are actually selected and listed, and Backbase is clearly presented as one of the leaders in this field. Typically, what we do and what we really are passionate about is that how can we work together with banks around the world on any continent to help them to define their digital transformation roadmap. We typically closely work together with strategy consultants, but also with system integrators. So Backbase is certainly not the single player in this transition, but we can definitely kind of share best practices, how-tos, both from a user experience point of view, as well as from a technology point of view, as well as from a project management and process point of view. So if you have any interest, we look forward to connect with you.
Yeah, we help you to become a digital leader. I really like this stepped-up approach. I believe this is a picture of one of our partners, Accenture Financial Services.
Yeah.
Where they say today it's all about optimization and simplification. It's all about getting that user experience layer in there, getting to start with APIs, work on your orchestration layer, work about simplification data, have those building blocks in place. Because once you have those building blocks in place, you can make things more agile. You can start looking forward. You'll be able, with those building blocks, with the Lego in the widgets, with the APIs that you have available, you can start innovating and move to a model. And that's where we want to push all clients, where you can do continuous innovation.
Yeah.
Where you have the basics in place and you don't have discussions about IT and technologies anymore, but you have discussions around your customers.
Yeah. Great. All right. So to wrap it up, most of the research materials you've seen here, as Jelmer already mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are going to share the PowerPoint and the presentation with you tomorrow. So everybody who has registered will receive the PowerPoint and the presentation, as well as a link to the recording. You can share the recording as well as the PowerPoint with your colleagues. Next to that, also, we have this omni-channel banking report with all the research materials. It's a very nice report. and it's available for download at the Backbase website. I believe we will shoot out a few Twitters at #Backbase with the URL where you can download this.
Yeah, if you guys go to Twitter, check the Backbase Twitter account. The pinned tweet on the top is about this. And of course, I'll also make sure to include the link in the email that you will receive for the recordings. So let's now move to the Q&A. I see there are some very nice questions popping in on the GoToMeeting panel. So you can use the GoToMeeting panel for Q&A. We have 10 minutes of Q&A. And I also will be checking Twitter to make sure that if you have questions, you can post on Twitter using #Backbase. And we'll make sure to monitor that and answer that as well. Yeah, the first question.
Yeah, one of the questions here is, let me see, there's a lot of questions here. So one question, omnichannel experience cannot capitalize the features of prevailing form factors. How do we take care of that? I mean, it's not possible to present all the desktop features onto a mobile. In such case, how does omnichannel banking exist?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Of course, you have a lot of capabilities currently that exist in your desktop apps or in your web apps. You want to bring a seamless experience to mobile as well. But I think the key about omnichannel is about seamless. It's not about having exactly the same features available on all the different devices and channels. What we saw in one of the pictures in the slide deck is that you have different use cases for different devices. If you want to do something quick, you grab your smartphone. If you're more casual, you're lying on the couch checking your stock portfolio, probably that's an iPad. So making sure the most applicable apps are available in the right context at the right device is key. So in an omni-channel setting. Omni-channel is all about, for me personally, about a seamless brand experience. It's the same bank no matter what device or channel I'm using. And also that they have, of course, a complete set of functionality, but a set of functionalities that are optimized for the device that I'm using at that time in that context.
Yeah, so I think that's one very, very valid view. And to summarize Jelmer's point of view, each device you can optimize for the different context. But alternatively, we also see a lot of banks that would like to offer the same type of capabilities on different devices. So to the question's point, there are different form factors. There's the small screen, there's the larger screen. In general, what we see, if we look at kind of the fabric of APIs and widgets, is that the whole orchestration model, the integration to the backend, the API management, the basic view on how to present stuff on the screen is all reusable on any screen factor. Only just on the glass, you can actually really optimize the visualization. People call this the view, and the view can really be optimized for a smartphone and can be optimized for a larger screen. So the view can be fundamentally different in its layout, in its functionality, but all the underlying wiring and logic to orchestrate the dialogue and to connect and do the straight through to the backend, all of that is reusable across every device, and it's a generic Lego component that you can reuse. And it's all running in a single platform that actually will orchestrate these interactions between the front end and the back end, but also between different front end devices from a single platform. So there's a tremendous amount of synergy with stuff that you write once and you run everywhere. But to your point, indeed, only on the glass, where we have the form factor, we can make optimizations really to the amount of screen estate available to the end user. I hope that makes sense.
And I think this is a nice follow-up question. What do we think about the future of the ATM channel? Is that part of the omni-channel?
Yeah, well, yes, in modern ATMs, for sure, actually also will start to kind of incorporate this whole widget philosophy. I'm not sure how important it is because I still think the core capability of the ATM is just to give cash. So, how much do you want to do there? But if you move from ATM into more of a self-service kiosk, for sure. The UI technologies are similar to a web browser or similar to a tablet with touch devices, and you can reuse the same underlying platform, the same widget architecture to empower interactions within an ATM or on a kiosk.
Yeah, I think we see some of our customers also running our software on an ATM device and starting to bring things together, like I can use the tap of my phone to get my money out or scan a QR code, so not having to touch the device and prepare something towards those devices. So they're communicating with each other.
Yeah, it kind of depends a little bit on which part of the world you are, how advanced these ATMs are, and what capabilities there are available. But yes, you're absolutely right.
Clear. And then something completely on the other side of ATMs, we have a question about the blockchain.
Yeah. Blockchain is awesome because blockchain has nothing to do with the orchestration layer, but blockchain actually will enable a lot of banks to kind of make a lot of processes way more efficient. So think of blockchain as a very efficient workflow or process design technology. It's an algorithm in which you can exchange data in a secure way between different factors, human beings, but also systems. So I think blockchain will not really operate at the UI or the user experience layer, but it will operate below the UI and it will dramatically improve certain processes. So a lot of banks actually now are starting to adopt the blockchain, not even the Bitcoin part of it, but actually the algorithm, the ledger, to really make their processes significantly more efficient.
And I think to do that efficiency, a strong orchestration or API layer is needed.
In the end of the day, you need to consume it, right? In the end of the day, you need to present it. So it's just another process that is exposed via the presentation layer.
Clear. A lot of questions we're normally getting. Who needs to run this in the business? Because we talk about digital transformation. Some people are responsible for digital. Sometimes we're running that, but do they have enough power? Or how can we make sure the organization is really going through that digital transformation program successfully?
Yeah, you see a lot of different attempts to kind of get this right. We see companies, of course, introducing the role of a chief digital officer, a function that is really needs to bridge between IT and the business, acting as the linking pin. So that's one model. I think in the end of the day, ideally, the CEO of the bank is the chief digital officer. But in many cases, of course, especially with larger banks, you really would like to have a dedicated group or a dedicated team to drive and create that bridge function. Alternatively, we've seen banks really go more in a startup style and really uniting IT resources and business resources and not bridging them, but basically combining them in a complete new physical unit. mBank in Poland is one of the best examples of that, extremely successful. I think Michael did a great job there. It's very inspiring. It really takes the Silicon Valley approach of a startup and basically assembling 200 people with all the different skill sets from all the different groups in the bank and unifying them in this new digital team to drive the digital transformation process.
Sure. I just realized, checking the questions, that we were pretty much retail banking focused in our presentation. How applicable is this on, let's say, a wealth management or commercial banking scenario?
The concept is universal. So although the examples were maybe a little bit more retail oriented, in the end of the day, a customer can have multiple roles. A single individual can be a retail customer and a small business owner at the same time. It can also be a user that also would like to have certain wealth management capabilities. So in the end of the day, retail banking, commercial banking, wealth management, in the end of the day, they are capabilities. And you can use exactly the same architecture. You can use the same Lego type of metaphor. And now you can actually create environments that are purely retail oriented or purely wealth oriented with this architecture. But you can also now have the flexibility to make certain combinations. We see that happening a lot where people now try to combine retail banking and small business banking, or they combine retail capabilities with wealth management capabilities. It's basically this composition model we had in this, but also with these fintech disruptors, how you mix and match capabilities to the end user.
Yeah.
So maybe in a way, retail and commercial banking are, arbitrary combinations.
Clear. Then kind of a question about the omni-channel and making it through. How can you really achieve that data persistency? Is that really the orchestration layer that takes care of that? We talked about orchestration layer a few times. Is that really making sure that the data persistency is there?
Yeah, it's potentially maybe a little bit technical question because data persistency, maybe for other people in the audience, how do you make sure that you have data from the back end or from the front end? How do you keep track of the data? How do you make sure that it stays, the integrity is correct? Typically, what you see, especially for the digital channels, you need to have a digital channel, digital banking services layer in which you can persist data. And that is either data that is generated by the end user, like their geolocation or their behavior or their preferences, or their universal address book capabilities. And on the other hand, you would like to persist data from various backend systems. So in general, you can do this in the service bus, but you also typically see for digital transformation, you need to have a separate digital channel optimized persistency layer to also enable seamless omni-channel journey orchestration.
Great. Jouk, we're almost at the end of the webinar. So one final question for everybody attending here, all the bankers. what's the first thing they should do tomorrow to start this journey or to be more successful in this journey?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Wow, the first thing to do tomorrow. Well, I would take a cup of coffee and then enjoy the day.
Great. And of course, the first thing will be read our report, check our slides, because again, all the slides will be provided after this webinar within 24 hours. I'll make sure you all have an email, including the slides, including a recording. You're free to share and also include the report. Jouk, thank you very much. Attendees, thank you all very much for being here again. And I hope to see you all in the end of December, where we host the last webinar of the year. And of course, I will make sure you all get an invitation for that as well.
Yeah, everybody in the audience, thank you very much for being here. I can see here in the statistics that we had over 500 people live in the audience. So thank you very much for making the time. We really appreciate it. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.